It's John Pollock, John Ramdeen, and Robin Black. All week long, we've been counting down the biggest stories of 2016 in mixed martial arts. Number one, probably the least dramatic countdown. It was the sale of the UFC this past summer for an astonishing figure. All told, it was just under $4 billion, led by WME-IMG. They took on a ton of debt in order to purchase this company, which is going to be a massive story, I think, for the year and years to come. But this was a fascinating story to watch because it was reported early on. I mean, Jonathan Snowden reported it. Then Jeremy Botter, I thought, did an excellent job of keeping everyone up to date with the talks and where things were. Dana White, nope, this isn't going anywhere.
No way. It's not being sold.
And then it turned out it was sold in July. But this, to me, is a story that it's not just the biggest story of 2016. I think it's going to be a massive story for years to come, John.
I think one of the main reasons why is you look back to 2001 when Zuffa ended up purchasing the UFC. They ended up buying it for $2 million at the time. I don't know how many people know this. UFC was banned from television. Lorenzo Fertitta at the time was a part of the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Dana White convinced his buddy to leave the commission and that they would end up running this promotion. They ended up spending $40 or $50 million helping to build the brand. And of course, one of the things that was very successful was the Trojan Horse, the Ultimate Fighter, that spawned huge interest in the UFC, and from there it was smooth sailing. Everybody wanted to get a piece of the pie. Some of these wrestlers that had, it's okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to try to chase my Olympic dreams, or do I want to be a junior coach on some second-tier college? Or I can try to make millions of dollars following Dan Severn and all the wrestling luminary. I think today's Mark.
Well, in the early 2000s, it was not millions.
That's true.
It was like,
yes, very true.
Maybe I can make my mortgage payments.
But the Matt Hugheses of the world came in and made some real
Mark
money.
Coleman's, the Matt Hughes, they kind of set the tone for a lot of these athletes, and then Tito Ortiz came in, and that's when the real money started coming in, the interest started coming in, and the paychecks got bigger and bigger, and then you saw the venues started getting bigger and bigger. You look at some of the older UFC shows that was ran by Zuffa, they were in the middle of nowhere in some of these tiny little casinos. Now, in this day and age, they're in some of the biggest venues, 60,000 people in Toronto and Australia. It only made sense. You had a feeling that Dana White and the Fertittas were only going to hold this. We're only going to own this thing for so long, because just like anything, when you make it valuable, get rid of it and make your cash.
Well, and how you look at a price tag like that and walk away.
Yeah.
I mean, at the largest that you could have guessed, if you were to say the UFC would be sold, no one's predicting $4 billion.
I don't even know if the word billion would come into
I don't
it
think
for
so.
the average person. But most of us don't know anything about business, and people like me watch Shark Tank and see some stuff on the internet and know the fight game, have developed some expertise, and then know some of the people, and I'm like, well, why would they change anything? Look, it's just, they say it's worth $4 billion. They shouldn't change anything. They changed a lot of stuff. I don't know anything about business, clearly. But once you go in, so I have a very small couple of roles within that organization, which I'm proud to do. And so I get to peek in a little bit to how things are happening as they shift things up. And it's pretty smooth, man. You quickly get to see, wow, these people are experts. So when people come in, whether you're Mark Cuban or you're anyone at this level, you come in, they have a game plan from the get-go. Like, you're not spending this money and going, well, hope it works. They've already analyzed everything, seen how it works. And we talked to a CEO or a head of a large television company, and he was like, by the time you get in there, part of the deal has been we must cut this percent to get the money to buy the thing.
It's already
so
in
it's
place,
a foregone conclusion. So lots of changes, but they kept Dana White in, obviously, because he knows the tinkerings of that business more than anybody. And I think at first it was like, oh, cool, let Dana talk and let him go out there. But I think that company has quickly seen that Dana's also a very strong business mind, an organizational mind. Nobody on planet Earth understands the sport more than him. So I think it went from, sure, let's keep him and pick his brain, to, holy crap, we better keep this.
Do you believe that he's going to be around in 2017 and 2018, or is he going to get tired of things? Because I think one of the things in order for this organization, for the sport to succeed, is you have to understand the culture.
I think, I agree. I think to answer that truthfully, I would have to know him personally better than I do, because this will rely on what he wants in his life. Yes, when it's yours and it's your baby and you're two buddies and you built it from close to bankruptcy, you will put everything into it. But when it is no longer yours and you're playing a part, do you play a slowly smaller and smaller part? Does something else interest you? Do you want to get interested in the casino business? Oh, you get to see your family more? That's probably really nice. So there's a real personal element there that I don't think any of us can answer. But they have been willing to say, you guys, you're too romantic about the culture. Like, they cut a ton of things that were
and
video
people.
and people, but things like video and stuff, and they went and decided to cut that embedded.
That's crazy.
And that was the one that I think internally people fought for and said, you don't understand. Embedded is a part of this thing. It's a part of how people relate and understand and consume this. So I think from what I picked up, people went to bat to save embedded. But they came in and said, we got to cut all of this kind of stuff, at least for now, lower the things down and then start building up. But I guess that's what companies do. You know, people with a lot more business sense than any of us, they do this for a living.
Just the idea that a year ago, if we were to tell you by the end of 2016, not only would the UFC be sold, Lorenzo Fertitta would be gone.
Joe Silva.
Well, Joe Silva, we don't exactly know what his attachment is with the UFC, but appears to be at least outgoing or was to be.
I talked to Joe on Sunday. We chatted back and forth about a couple of books and stuff, and he sent me a picture of a brand new, I hope I'm not overstepping it, brand new room in his house that were just for him and his wife to read books that they built, which is nice, so they can hang out together. I didn't ask him, we were just chatting as friends, but that says to me, at least, what are you thinking about these days? I'm thinking about getting more time hanging out with my wife reading books. And that guy's earned that, man. How this sport runs, and you talk about culture, how fights are made, the nature of good versus good, getting people to not judge losses so you could keep having great fighters fight each other. The way with which he matched fights is an even bigger part of how we consume and why we love fights than we think it is.
Also, I mean, Tom Wright, Gary Cook, some power players that truly helped build this entire company over the last number of years. It's just such a different face of the company. And as we look into next year, it's going to be interesting because they have to make back so much of this money. They have to make these certain markers that I think you're going to see a lot of fights that are generated to get as many eyeballs as possible. And that's going to come with fights that might upset your core base. It's like, who knows what 2017 is going to look like and how this new management, what is going to be the new culture of the UFC.
What I'm afraid of is what you're talking about is true. They're going to be focused on the big, massive fights and some of these other fight cards that are featuring the up-and-comers and the talented action fighters. I think they might fall to the wayside. They
also have a television deal at the end of 2018, so you want your numbers strong going into negotiations because they want to increase their rights by
$400 million is what they're looking for.
You make that $4 billion back in 10 years just with that. Think of that. But they make more money with Conor McGregor than the bottom 150 fighters all combined. Probably the bottom 300 fighters all combined, and that's math. That's just math. I didn't invent math.
So if you're the new owners, then it's like, well, get rid of those guys then.
Well, you still need to have 40 fight cards a year. Yeah, because
I guess if you have your
because
TV
if you got
deals,
that TV deal, so they all got to be there. But they got to figure something out with Conor McGregor. And you know what? Smart people do smart things. When you are really, really valuable and they know it, there's a deal to be the best deal, and this is true for all of us in anything in life. The best deal to make is a deal that's good for everyone. That way, that relationship continues and everyone's happy. So it's good for Conor McGregor. It's good for the UFC. It's good for the audience. It's good for everybody. That's the deal to make, and that's the deal ultimately that'll be made.
No surprise, the sale of the UFC is the biggest story in mixed martial arts for 2016.